I'm your host, Davina Shinsky, and you're listening to Live Without Limits, Dreams Come True with the Right Mindset. And today's presentation is called Breaking Up with Someone You Love. How to do and how do you know how to handle it? In relationships, rough patches happen, and sometimes we wonder whether it makes sense to go our separate ways or stay together. Yet, maybe you've been wondering about the above for quite some time. For you, right now, it makes sense to end things. However, this doesn't mean it's easy. Breaking up with someone that you love is complicated. You care about them. You don't want to hurt them, but you know things just aren't working. So, how do you go about this in the right way? What should you know? In this in this presentation, we're going to help you navigate this difficult decision. So, how do you know when to break up with someone that you love? Ups and downs in a relationship are completely normal. No one can expect a fairy tale ending 100% of the time. And when two separate individuals commit to one another, some differences that create conflict and disagreements. Personalities always clash at some point, especially when you're together constantly. And understanding this, understanding how to communicate effectively is so important. But sometimes love truly isn't enough. Personalities clash in the wrong ways, or perhaps there's just been too much resentment that you find yourself and your partner unable to overcome. Put simply, it sucks. But you know that deep down that you both could find better matches and be happier living separate lives. One of the reasons that we're finding that there's been such a high divorce rate, especially during the latter part of the 20th century, is because if you look back over time, many a times what happened was you had a couple that got married that the woman had a defined role of being the homemaker and taking care of the children, and the husband who went out to work and was the breadwinner. But during the latter part of the 20th century, when women started taking more control of their lives and going out and working, then it changed the dynamics of the family. And so, whenever problems arose in the relationship that we found that were insurmountable, that in the past women stayed in those relationships because they were financially dependent on their husband. But once women started going out to work and sharing in the expenses, they no longer had to depend on the husband, and they could take care of themselves financially. And therefore, what you were seeing was that bad marriages were breaking up rather than just staying together. And then too, because you had that generation that had bad marriages but stayed in those marriages, then those were unhealthy relationships, and those children only knew what an unhealthy relationship was, and that's what they had. And as things began to change, then people understood unhealthy relationships were no longer good, and you no longer had to stay within that relationship. So, what are the signs that a relationship is over? There are also a few telltale signs that a relationship is over before anyone has actually permanently pulled the plug. How do you know when breaking up with someone that you love is the right choice? Here are some signs. One, you're broken up and gotten back together many times. I can remember when I was in high school, I saw many a relationship where teenagers, they would get together, they would break up, they would get back together, and they were more times than not unhealthy relationships. There's a reason that you and your partner keep ending things. And despite reconciliation, a breakup is still on the table. There are only so many times a couple can play the yo-yo game and of breaking up and then getting back together, especially if you're no longer young adults or teens. Think about why breakups continually happen when between the two of you. It's possible that those are the reasons it's not meant to be, but it's hard to admit. Two, your needs aren't being met. This is very matter of fact, and unfortunately, needs vary, or rather, the needs vary from person to person. Furthermore, some people will be able to meet your needs and some won't, and vice versa. This may again come down to a difference in personalities. If you are sure whether your needs are getting met or not, or what you or your partner's needs involve, you should uncover what each of your love languages are. This can help you each determine whether you're willing to meet each other's needs or not.